So in this video, we're going to look on some different type of materials inside the Vue. So let's go ahead and begin by creating object. And this will be our sphere. We'll also take our main camera and just let's go ahead, move about and point down so we can observe this sphere. To open Material Editor, we have multiple ways we can do. We can go ahead, click on a gear where it says Edit Material. We can just double-time click on Material, or we can also click and go Edit Material from drop-down menu. So let's go ahead, just double-time click to open Material Editor. And if you are in this kind of basic material editor, which has worked in many cases when you want just apply simple, we want to actually switch to Advanced Material Editor. Advanced Material Editor will provide for us much more options that we can modify and use. And you can see how much more tabs we have it we did not have before. First time when you use this, it's maybe a little bit confusing, but overall it will be straightforward and you will get familiar very soon with them. Okay, so we are in basic mode. Before begin modify, I want to point that overall on our UI, what we have here, layout. So we have our switch toggle button between basic and advanced. We have a different type of materials, simple PBR. We have a two-sided materials. For example, if you have it on a leaf on a plant, you want top one and another one on another side, or so on. We have it mixed materials, group materials, which is kind of going with a little bit older version of Vue, but they still be very useful when we work with the current version, but they are more kind of like original ones. And I think a mixed was before layering, so it's kind of previous, but mixing they don't go layer over, so they kind of push around. And we'll look on them in a second. Group it, Volumetric Materials, and Ecosystem Particle. So this is Ecosystem Particle allowed us to create different instance of the objects, for example, plants, rocks, or different ones, and positioning them. And by using all of these additional properties, we actually can specify how we want to position those objects. In previous versions, maybe like Vue 4 and before Ecosystem, it was just object scattering, which we still have it, but at that more random and less effective. With Ecosystem Particle, you have quite a bit flexibility and ability to modify and manage how you want to distribute those objects. Keep in mind, if you're using Vue native plants, they all will be affected by the wind and gust and additional effectors. So they all come kind of alive. It's a species, so they can modify, grow, change by season, and so on. So it's a very complex ecosystem you can build with this. Okay, next we have our mapping mode, and mapping mode allowed you simple in two ways: world and object. World, where the mapping begin from 0 point location from your map and going so on in all directions, and it will apply to all objects same time. For example, we're going to world standard. Let's go open our loaded material for our terrain, and we'll just get a simple grid. Let's set scale to 1. Okay, and we'll take our sphere. We'll go same preloaded scale, and let's set scale 1. And notice when we start moving our orb left and right, you can see how it starts changing. You can see the grid is slightly adjusting on ours. So, and the reason, actually, you know what, I think it's object standard. That's why it wasn't changing. So it's good to switch back to world standard. So, and now when we go at move, it should move it, because I noticed it did not. There you go. You can see how it's moved. And we'll take our main camera. Let's go switch to the top camera so we can observe about. And you can see kind of right here with our ball. Let's increase size on our preview. We'll take our sphere, make it quite a bit larger so it's more visible. And you can see how it's kind of overlay with those elements. And in some cases, maybe it's even better if we use a cube. Same way. Let's go select our cube. Select one. Be sure again it's set to world standard. Okay, we'll kind of hide sphere for now, so we don't need it at this moment. Okay, and our cube, you can see how it's matching right there. But when we start moving, the texture, it's almost like moving under, so it's still matching very well our things. So let's go bring closer our camera. Go around here. And you can preview right there, you can see how it's matched. Let's go move just slightly away. And a grid. It's almost like feel, you know, you put it cloth on top of the table, and under that cloth you put some object, and you see the shape and you move around, but texture of the cloth does not change, it changes overall shape. So this is kind of primitive explanation, but think about texture stretched to all over, and it's if you have any object that will set to world type mapping, it will apply that all texture based on those positions. This is very useful for us when we're creating a distant mountains, or we want to apply control through all of our terrain. We will going to use the world standard for this. The next, if we look on that, it is called object based. So let's go ahead, reduce a little bit right here, and if we're going to material editor, you notice right here the object. So it's actually take position of the object, the 0, 0, and you can modify this by going inside the pivot points, set and change here. But overall, let's go back to our sizes. You can change how position, but let's say this, the map is applied to the object, base it on the object local coordinates. So and you can see this way, if we move our object standard set, okay, if we move our object, the texture on the object does not change because it is kind of locked to our position. And this is useful when we start to using image-based mapping to our object, when we create a terrain in texture that we want specifically apply to the object. For example, if we want to do wooden box, we want to create the texture that map it to that box. It does not apply, does not change as we're moving box around. So overall, right here we have it world or object. And of course we have it all the subcategories: standards, cylinder, spherical, parametric. They are a little bit different, mostly how the mapping is applied. We'll use it quite a bit, probably object parametric, because it's a take the texture is stretched through all our object, and it will be very useful when we do terrains. And we'll use it world standard. So those probably two most common that I'm personally using in my workflow. I do use the other ones, but how I say, those is probably 90% or more of what I'm using is just between those two. Okay, so this is kind of mapping, and I take a little bit time to explain so we know when we start mapping what's going on there. Okay, so let's go ahead right now. We'll close this one. So we don't need our cube right now. We'll delete it. Let's bring our sphere back so we can see it. And we'll take our main camera and point to the sphere. Okay, as well, I think we time to replace our ground with something like neutral gray. And let's go ahead in our sphere, and same, we'll just take basic flat gray. By the way, if you notice when I open my materials browser, I have a lot of selections here. So I have it categories of all these different type materials, different type volumetric, spectral, transparent, and so on. Ecosystem with displacement, without. View come with very basic preset, and you will have it some of them. And as you're working more and more in creating your own, you will create your own personal materials. You always can add new materials by clicking on the plus and go select location. And for example, I have materials, what you can see right here, it's a lot of my materials that I built during a lot of years. For those who are interested, if you Patreon support, you're getting all of them for free. I don't remember, 500, 600 materials. It's a lot of them. Or you can purchase if you want it. But overall, you can create your own or find online free. So right here, we'll just use it basic and basic material. Okay, let's go up our material editor. It is very simple. So we have just a color, and you can see it's apply color map, just a gray to this. We have it no alpha, no transparency, and those ones, other ones actually can even says none. So right now you can see when it's nothing, they're just kind of italic gray. They're showing us they disabled those. By the way, these tabs, they are changing depending on what type of material you have it, or if you're on a layer or not. And what's meaning by on a layer? Because materials, and you can see right here we have the one flat in our windows where we see the layers of materials. So we can add and modify those layers by creating adding new layers. And nice things about them, they are interact like in Photoshop. So you can blend between them, you have all this interaction, you can make it. But also keep in mind the top layer will override bottom layer. So let me switch to scale 1. And by the way, if you want to change some name, you just double click on the name, and you can type it and change name as well. So let's go ahead. Right here is our basic is gray. So for example, if I'm going click add layer, and I have a new layer, and I'm going to select maybe overall color, so we go very fast, and it says red. Okay, what's happening? All our spheres turn red because it is overriding on the top. Red. Okay, there you go. So it's overriding our materials and layers, and that will override happen not just on the color, it's also happen on all properties that may affect. For example, bump map, if you don't say replace or add, if it's a replace, it will override all bump maps. We'll look on this in a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and look more on interface right here. It's where we can control layers, added additional, have it some manipulation with them. We can change scale, visibility, or highlight them, which we'll look in a second. What does this mean? We can change the orders by going up and down. Also, we can create, load, save, delete, and we have a couple snapshots. So we can take material, snapshot it. When we're going to different material creation, we can put it back. So on. It's kind of small bucket, temporary bucket of materials that we can reuse it. On our left, we have our preview. And of course, preview, you can always just change by clicking on options. And right here, it's sphere. You can switch cube, cloud, terrain. So if you want preview as a terrain look, 2D plane, and so on. I will keep it as a sphere because it's a default. And I'll just keep it everything so you can look familiar. We'll also have it a little bit more complex for advanced rendering, where we can see for our materials, if we want one side, just cast shadow, don't cast shadow, only shadow, made reflection, and so on. This is a big selection for a little bit more advanced and complex things. We do use it sometimes in my tutorials, this one, primarily if I want don't cast shadow or cast shadow only. But for now, we'll just kind of showing you it is here, but we won't necessarily going inside to use them. Okay, let's go ahead next. And alpha boost just below, this is help us take this layer, and what we're going to do, so we can very fast hide layers if we need it. Okay, alpha boost allowed us increase opacity or transparency, how you can say this. For example, if we reduce, look what's happening when I'm going down, it's become more transparent, this, so we have less effect on the layers. This is nice mode for very simple blending between different layers. And of course, if we're increasing, it will increase. Right now, it will 0%. We won't go above the 0, but if you have it some other effect, they will magnifying as well. And same if you go to -100, it just effect not there. So let's go ahead, reset to the 0 or middle point, so it does not increase or decrease. Okay, below, how I said, we have it multiple different tabs, and not as right here. We have presence. If we go to the basic, the presence is not available. And if we're going to create all these different type materials, for example, let's create new layer and switch to, for example, two-sided. You can see how they change. They're only these ones. Okay, let's go ahead, create a new material. Okay, new layer. Sorry, not material. for example, mixed material, and you can see how they change differently. So depend on what type material. Okay, dual side, so we kind of know what this is the, okay, and right here we'll have it mix, and you can see how they're changing. One thing keep in mind, if you do not create layer and you have it existent, like for example I have it right here mix. Let's see what's happening when I switch to ecosystem particle. All of these, for example, added, but in some cases the layers will change itself, so be careful. Like see right here, it switched from ecosystem to normal layer. So for example, it does not necessarily will create new layer, but it may override. So be careful. Almost all the time what I do in this case, I always create new layer. For example, mix, let's go from mix, switch to ecosystem. See what's happening? It's created new layer for us. However, if I'm going on a ecosystem layer and I go says I want simple material, it just switch back to simple materials without creating one. So don't rely on this type of material you're selecting that will create for you new material. Best way to do, best practice, it is using create new material and after switch what type of material. That way you avoid accidental replacing all of your work that you was done with that. Okay, so let's go ahead right here and we'll just go hide those layers for now because we don't need them. And we'll just come back to our red one. So we have a color, alpha, map, and so on. We have the presence, which is kind of new. If we look on our base, we don't have presence. Presence, it's different ones between them because it's allowed us modify altitude, slope range, and so on. Okay, let's go ahead right now, look on a basic, and we jump after to our higher layer when we get to our present tab. Color, and in the color we have it multiple modes. We can have it constant color, where it's just single. All what we can do, we just select one color, and it is applied. Straightforward. Notice we also have it edit graph. And that is give you much more flexibility, but add quite a bit complexity. Then we're going inside the function editor with the nodes. We can create a very complex textures. But in this case, we won't look right now. So just keep in mind this edit graph. It's allowed you to connect almost any nodes inside the function editor and manipulate with them on highly sophisticated level. We can do this. Also, you notice if you go to some other areas, when we look there, you will see as well some edit graph here and some so on. Okay, so this is constant. We also have it mapped picture. And mapped picture, you can see you can take images and use them as a texture. So for example, we select one image. Let's disable this. Our interface is changed to apply to this. And in our image, we have our graphics that just loaded. It's PNG. We can inverse, we can change gamma, we have it rotation, flip over. So the basic manipulation of this, we also have an option to delete this and so on. Our mapping mode is automatic, and we'll let application to figure out how to do. This is work very well in most cases. However, if you have it sometimes problem, you can go ahead and try different modes based on what type of shape your object are. So our scale is 1:1. We can reduce this if we want to make smaller, and it's simple. You can type in or adjust. For example, this will be twice as small, and because the texture it is repeatable, so it tumble, we won't see that big difference. For now, let's go back to 1:1. So it's a take full image and apply it to our object. Vue overall does good job, but sometimes you need to pay attention. Like see right here a little bit scratching and stretching happening, and that is happening because our image is a square, but we try to apply it to the round shape object, and of course that distortions will happen. You can avoid this by creating specifically maps like in UV kind of split and also on maps, but overall just keep it in mind that you will have distortions if object shape does not match the image. Okay, let's go ahead. Next is offset. If we need it, move a little bit left, right, and this is maybe work for the object if you have seams and you want to adjust a little bit. Next, we have it rotation of the image, self-explanatory, and we have it interpolation type. So this is help us to blend. And what's happening, sometimes images may have it kind of not anti-aliasing and applied, they're too sharp, and you can see edgy or pixelization quite a bit on the image. This is 600 by 600, so it should be okay for this image, but if we have a very low resolution image, you may see some problems. Bilinear will help us to avoid to kind of put it anti-aliasing on some of this effect. If you notice, we have it non-bilinear, normalized, and bicubical, so they all apply different type of this kind of smoothing blending. But overall, I'll say bilinear does a very great job, and probably most time you don't need to worry about change this. Next, we'll have it our tiling mode, and tiling it's repeating. So right now we're using a world standard. Let's go change to object parametric. And object parametric take this image, and you can see just apply directly this image on an object, base it on an object XY positioning on a center. We can repeat it. So what's happening right now, if we set, for example, scale 0.2, we won't see different. It just makes smaller, and you can see in preview because, actually, you know what, let me hide this red out, okay? So we can preview in this window as well. And that's what's happening. It's a repeating, but it's repeating even a small. So what's happening if we just says once? You'll see its object become black. Right here on the bottom we have little bit. So you know what, let's go a little bit, maybe offset that. Okay, let's go offset this up. Oh, maybe right here, and let's go a little bit on the top. So we'll offset our image. Oh, maybe too much I offset it. Right here, and let's go to, there you go. There you can see our object right on the side. There you go. So we kind of try to bring this, but you can see this is our object that we just applied. But because it's once, it's only putting one. That will work very well if you have like a sticker. And we'll look on a second with the layers. You can do this actually very good. But this is work, for example, if you want just apply maybe crack or something from image, you can use it just once and position and properly place if you want it. Notice right here below we show manipulation gizmo. So let's click on this. What it does, it's open another texture placement. On this case, we actually can go very easy and by the hand like this manage in apply it where we want it. So we can do more adjustments. If we want an offset angle, we can also use it special our tools to create and adjust. So at least it's work a little bit better this way, but it's allowed us by using visually placed all this texture in right place as we need it. Well, let's go ahead back and we'll go to repeat. So we'll have it all covering, and we'll just set 1, 1, 0, 0. So we'll just reset everything to back. Okay, next you can see we have color correction and color blending. So those options allowed us to add additional color over our existing temperature. So for example, let's go change these to red. Okay. And you notice how our colors change. So it's take over all color and change to what we needed. Let's go reset this color back to ours. Color blend will allow us to do the coloring, but only blend with specific color. And it's blend very well because what it does, it's, for example, let's go edit, and we'll take like purple, and I can just slowly blend in to specific color. And you can see right here, let's go more in one, actually says color mask on this. Okay, and you can see how it's blending this color, start applying more and more of this coloring over. So it's almost like we created additional color and just blending in that color as well. That is very useful options when you start importing object. When I use it, this mostly it's when I'm going inside, for example, take some model that was in a DOS or Poser or so different. I import them and I notice sometimes maybe coloring or something off, but I don't want necessarily modify the texture. I want to change color, so I can use it color blending to kind of a little bit blend in or modify. So you can work a little bit with those. Okay, let's go right here. We'll just reset back to gray on our color. Okay, so this is overall on an image map. Of course, we will use this quite a bit when we start working with the image mapping textures, specifically on the terrain. And of course, we will use it object parametric. Okay, so let's go next. Look, we have our procedural colors, and here is just to create from functions. So you can notice right here parametric. Let's go jump a little bit in the function editor. I know can be confusing and kind of get easy to lost. And by the way, if you're interested, I have the function editor for the beginners from A to Z tutorials on my channel. You can go check them out. It will help you a little bit understand what's going on here. But overall, we can look, we have our input nodes. Let's go very fast. And this is provide our information for this object or environment around our object. Okay, input nodes. We have all this flow with the filters that we can say, hey, do this, do that, do this. And this is our output nodes. It's nodes that will be affected by our calculations or manipulations. They also notice some of them have a different color, red, blue. They have a different kind of like cyanish and green. So this is based on what type of the information it's passing. So we'll have our vector based. It can be XY or XYZ, depending on what type. We have our number. We also have our color, which is represent green, and we have our color map, or for this variety of the colors that represent by aqua color. So it's just a little bit to help you to understand. So you can see we can go from one direction to another. Right here, we still even have an old node that we disconnected, but it's keeping. Keep in mind, some of those old nodes will keep it in some materials. You can delete them manually, or Vue will clean up by itself after time, or you can go to File and Clean Up. I'll show you in a second when we close this menu, and you can reset, which will clean up all of this unused stuff. In some cases, it's nice that keep it, because if you want to come back to something, you still have it cached some of that information. Don't worry, when it's rendered, it will clean up, so you won't have all this overhead stuff sitting in there. Okay, right here you can see we have our filter, and this is color map that represent changing colors. Notice it's going to the constant. So if I'm going double time click and I'll say let's go colorful, we select rainbow, this color, it will send me middle point because our input is constant. So what's happening if we take, for example, slope and connect slope instead constant, you can see how it will change, because right now we have our color is changing based on a slope, and it's changing gradient there as well. But overall, you can see how can be very fun and a little bit complex work in a function editor, but you have much more you can do here. Let me show just very fast. So right here you can see different nodes, and there are quite a bit many inside. You can get lost. But what we're going to look, it is on the fractal, and we'll just go use it simple fractal right now. Not a simple fractal, it's log vector to the position. So it says, give me, depend on a position on this generator of this fractal, give me number, and its number will be from 0 to 1. So now we can connect that one, and you can see how it's changed. So now it's look quite a bit more interesting with color distribution, but it's because we was using this fractal stuff. Of course, we can increase gain, just play a little bit more, maybe on roughness, right here, reduce features, and so on. You can play a little bit more with this to create. Okay, let's go back to our normal preview. And this is parametric, and you can actually create quite a bit complex terrains, even color distribution or other ones distribution by this. The other ones is natural grade, and this one currently probably one of my favorite from this creation beside the maps, because it's a very simple way to create very nice and realistic look texture, and primarily when we create like grass or something else. So notice right here we have two colors. We can mix between them by using noise, roughness, contrast, how much they're blending, balance between two colors. We can apply distortion and alpha grain or transparency grain on some layers. So example, let's go say we create first will be red, okay, and next maybe blue, okay, maybe right here a little bit darker blue. You notice how when they mix they kind of start blending. So we can have it increase contrast, okay, reduce alpha grain, so we can kind of manipulate with those ones. Actually, let's go pop up a little bit more around here, roughness, and you can see as we're creating more contrast between two layers happening, so we start kind of creating all of this noise. And this is, you can play around with that a little bit more, see which one work, what you like it best, or how it's work. And again, right now one color we'll use, you can see here with the two colors, it's mostly what I will going to use, and I'll kind of find that's more useful. And also many times when I work with this, I create maybe basic on this natural grain. Use the two colors that is kind of easy to distinguish. When I like how distribution work, then I can go ahead and switch to the colors maybe a little bit closer to each other, but will represent a little bit more natural look to me. So like right there. Okay, let's go ahead. Next, and again, this is kind of what we have there, different type of this. Let's go with the alpha. Alpha is just simple, it's apply transparency to this. We can do same mapped picture or procedural, so we have different ways to do this. And next we'll have the bump, and interesting things about bumps that it will create based on the shadows on the object, but it does not change shape of the object. So let's go right here and we'll select procedurals just for now. We can also double time click on the procedural, so we have it open library of all this already pre-made for us. I'll just select one, and notice what's happening. It's look very bumpy. Okay, you can even see on preview here, or we can look on a preview as soon when it's done pre-render. You can see how bumpy, but most important, look on the edge. Edge still very smooth and does not change, because the bump maps does not affecting our shape of the object. It's only affect how the light will create with highlights and shadows. So it's created perception, and it's worked very well, because in many cases it's all what we needed. We just needed to create simple bump map, and it's worked very well for the faraway objects when we don't need change dramatically shape. If we look next on displacement, for example, displacement will allow us to do as a bump only with affect the shape of the object. So let's go ahead right here. I'm just going to copy this function, and let's go to say none. So for now we'll just disable. We'll go back to procedural, and we'll just paste our function. Okay, and as we do that, you can see how it will change. We currently have 4.5 meters. It's probably quite a bit big one for us, so we need to reduce, and you can see even in previews it's look a little bit crazy. So let's go ahead and take down to 50 centimeters, and you can notice now if you look on the edge of this object, the shape of the object is changed. Okay, let's wait a second till our preview is rendered. Overall displacement will provide a little bit more accurate and natural look versus bump map. However, it is take increase in time, because it needs to recalculate all of these displacements, so it will take longer time. One way to cut down on render time, if you like how it's created, you can take and always bake to the object those displacements, so it will actually change shape of the object permanently. How to say, because it's permanently, be careful, because afterwards if you're going inside the your material editor and you want change, it won't be there and you cannot do it. You just need to undo that way and so on and go that way. So okay, and our let's go jump back to our bumps right now. So we'll go ahead again, select procedural, what we have before, and you notice right here as we select the bump map, and we can combine all of them together. So we can have it displacement and bump and so on. But you notice right here we have it very similar. We have scale, our filter, which has allowed us to modify information as is coming in. So we can increase or decrease some parameters, area, filter, and so on. So it's graphically. Okay. We also have our parameter depth. Right now it's 4.5 and it's going view units. So if we want it, I usually do bumps quite a bit low because I like more natural look. So it won't be that obvious, but again, you can use it to whatever bumps you think will work with the height. You also can manipulate based on a slope. For example, if we don't want it, the bumps apply on the sides, we can always enable and have it influence of the bump map depending on the slope as well, and you can see the kind of starts moving right there. Okay, and of course we have it add to undefined. If we have it like on a top layer, this will be enabled, and this is kind of nice to keep in mind. Look, right now we have the bump map. So if we're going back to our red color, let's go to re-enable. Okay, and you'll notice in a second the bumps will still be there, kind of they flatten out, and our displacement is gone. And reason is why, how I said before, it's a layers. So layer will override. If you want it, you can go back to displacement and says, let's add on this preserve, whatever we had below, and add on top on this. And look, right now the back. Same way we have it with bumps, we can go on, and that will affect it as well. Okay, so let's go ahead, hide this channel again, go to basic, and currently because it's our basic, that will disable because we have no layer below. Normals, it's allowed you to add specific channel, which is work as well as a bump and displacement inside creation. So you can have it from procedurals or mapped picture. And if, for example, if we go procedural, oops, actually I don't want edit, let's go right here, I want paste, sorry. And let's go to disable our displacement. And let's look on the normals, what's happening here when we set to procedural paste function. Oops, it does not like to do this. So let's go ahead and we'll just preload it that way. And I notice it is resetting right now, so we'll probably want to modify that otherwise. But overall, it's allowed you to add and create this additional effect. So let me go ahead, kind of adjusting. And you can see sometimes you get quite a bit scared when you go inside. Okay, bump map, displacement, right here, our normals. And normals will accept the vector information. I don't think we have it vector going from ours, so we need created. Just overall want to show you. Okay, so let's go ahead. We have our displacement we did, and ambient occlusion, that will also, if you work with Pbr material, you can create specific channel. It's where calculate how the light absorption and bouncing, so all of these interactions on the light rays. So you can, same way you can create constant map picture procedural. We have our highlights, and highlights a little bit important. One thing I mentioned, Pbr materials or physically based render materials, that is kind of try to have it standard. It is preloading kind of image based, or for example some other materials from Substance, so you can use those ones, but we'll look on them a little bit more in a second. Okay, highlights. Highlights is kind of important if you want to create a specific type of materials. Think about it, how lights will interact with a surface. So for example, if we just pop up brightness, look what's happening. And it's now we have it almost look like a reflective, like maybe not necessarily metal, but it's wet kind of look. Our global size, it can reduce how big area will interact. So if we go to shiny or make those area a little bit smaller, obviously our specular lights have it smaller, so it's apply. Or if we want to go dual, it will create quite a bit wide and it's a little bit more matte look. So it's kind of between them, both of them. So if you're creating rocks wet in a river, you probably want to go more to the shiny, set a little bit small, and there you go. That will be just put water over, and it will look like maybe rocks on the bottom of the water bed. We have also highlights changing, anamorphic, and those ones you can, they just different type how the light affecting. You can kind of observe, see how they're affecting. In many cases, isotropic, this is probably work the most for us. Okay, let's go ahead. Transparency, that is said how this layer is transparency working on this. So let's go back to our red channel. We'll go to re-enable. And I just want to show you above this. So this is very simple. You remember we have alpha boost. In some cases you can say, hey, transparency, it is like alpha boost. But it's a little bit more because here we can control how the global transparency work on which level. Notice also on the left side we have this drive with function. So we actually can connect this property when we click inside our function. So we can control based on a position, size, or so on. You can even connect to the other object. Like for example, as a sun going up and down, you can change any of those positioning. Okay, so let's go right here and we'll just remove our stuff. So right here's our global transparency. So let's go ahead. Oops, I just want to delete it. There you go. So we'll just delete that one. Okay, so here's our global transparency. Notice as I add any value more than 0 on global transparency, we have additional properties appear for us, like blurriness of transparency, refraction index. Refraction index has allowed us to simulate some other object. For example, water, we can go 133, I think it's a water, refraction index. And we can create a different type of the how the light interact. And transparency, it's where light pass through the object without get absorbed as other ones and affecting angle of the changing. We also have it translucity, where is the lights coming, absorb in different direction and also interact with materials directly. So right here you can see we have it our transparency applied, refraction index, turn reflective with angle, it's how much light when it's hit the surface where reflected, how narrow other angle can be. If we going, I'll give you example on this. If when we, for example, create a lake, and in a lake I want some light reflecting from the waves, I may increase this or decrease depending on how much light I want to reflect from the waves to create those highlights. So this is actually a nice function. Also same on those flares that we'll create it, we can create intensity and expand on them. So additional options, depreciation, we also have it proper on the our transparency if we want a fuzzy, adaptive, thin surface, so on. Fading out, this is we can create a depth with this. Also notice right here we have absorption and scattering. That was added I think in 2 versions before in a view, where we can create a little bit more realistic lights, volumetric. So as it's passing through, this property create a very nice, very good effect, but it's come with a price quite a bit increase in a render in some cases. So be careful when you use this. You can play it, but just see how it will work for you. Okay, we also have a reflection, and it's just simple reflection effect. The mirroring almost to this. Same, we can have it reflective sharp. We can add blurriness to reflection, so you can see it right there. So we'll get a little bit smaller. We can also sensitivity to the angle and so on. The one nice thing, if you keep it want create metal, you probably want to increase your reflectivity here, but also you want to go inside the effect tab and right here option color reflected light metallic. So you want to go and put this to the 100, and you notice now we will have it color transmute as well, but it will have this kind of metallic look. So again, when you use this one, just keep in mind the reflections not necessarily will have it for you as a metallic look. You will also probably want to add this color reflect metal. Okay, let's go back to our reflectivity, and again we have it simple straightforward updates here, and we can have it reflection map if you have any specific one you want to apply it. Notice again we have a drop down box with our mapped pictures, procedures, or so on. So you don't necessarily can use want to use one. You can go on procedural. We can go ahead, select some map of reflection here. Okay, let's go to, let's go select different ones. Okay, and you can notice how the reflection is changed now based on where we want to that reflection applied. Okay, let's go ahead. Translucency, it's what I said before. It is take subsurface scattering, so take a light and kind of scatter under, creating this wax type effect. So if you want to create some realistic skin maybe, or some eyes will work very well, you probably want to use it subsurface scattering. This is very heavy on calculations, so let's do this way. Let's go ahead, we'll hide this one. Okay, we'll go on our basic, we'll go to translucency, we'll increase subsurface scattering, and for example we can set different properties, but let's go ahead deep. When increase, pop up a little bit, refraction index, remember what we said before, we can create even more. And we also have it what light is absorbed and what is filter light is scattering. So for example, we're going to set a little bit more bluish on scattering, so we'll have it as light scattering, it's turning a bit more to the blue, and we'll have it some of those effect applied. Again, let's go just check a couple things. One, I want none here, so we'll just remove this. Let's go highlights, remove highlights, so we can preview a little bit easier on translucency. Okay, and we'll have it also multiplied right there. There you go. Okay, and additional properties. Overall, if you have any questions what they do, I will recommend check documentation online. They have it quite a bit nice to go in details, but besides that, just experiment, just go around and play, try to change. If you find something that's work very well for you, that is good. If you find you maybe want to modify, or you think you mess up, you can always just reset it, just start over or do other things. So let's go ahead, click OK here, and I think the problem is our object is a little bit too large. So what I'm going to do, just to reduce a little bit, make it smaller, and we'll just take a light, create light, and put it slightly behind on the side, so we can see how the light will interact with our object when we do translucency. Again, what I said before, be careful because it will take a little bit longer to render. Okay, next let's go back to our effect, and we'll just there's our basic, there you go, there's our translucency. We also have an additional effect where we can modify lighting, intensity on diffuse, ambient, luminosity. So if you want to make your object glowing, you can just go in luminosity. If you want to create like avatar plants or other things, you can do that way. Contrast, increase backlight of the object. One we look before, it is color reflected metal. So for this one, you kind of want to enable your reflectivity like overall, otherwise it does not actually will work this way. And we also color transmit the light. So like for example, we can increase and be sure the color kind of going with transmitting lights. Okay, the other options where we look at original materials, we can place it. If you depend object or world mapping. On a glow material, it will create a nice glow around. So let's create, for example, if you want to sun, couple things. Notice it is intensity and radius. It will create around. However, you would also option glow behind the object. So this one is important. Okay, and this global transformation, that is actually twist, rotate, and turn. So what's happening gets very useful if you're going and use the mapped picture example, and you have like a tiling. You can see tiling on this. So the turbulence and rotation, it will apply all of this different effect. For example, you can apply like this, and you can see how the turbulence change, something twisting. So I apply quite a bit, a big element, but you can do smaller. But point is showing you this will affect some of this element, so you can very easy to create, remove some tiling. And a problem with tiling, it's maybe not visible when you do on a small object. However, when you do, let's copy this material. Let's hide our sphere. Okay, but when we have a terrain, large terrain, and we'll take our camera, let's go on top so we can look down, and we take this terrain and we apply some materials to this. You'll see quite a bit. Let's go right here, our red. I want to go to basic, and I want to remove this one, so you'll see repetition. So right now it's like one apply scale. Okay, so what we want to do, it's repeated 1 1, and we'll switch from object parametric, you can see how it's stretched, to world standard. And on this one, actually, it's working not so bad, but sometimes you can see those lines, you can just see repetition. So, and remember, if you see this, you can always try to adjust rotation, cycle, and turbulence, so kind of remove some of these patterns to see in your texture. Okay, so right here, a little bit overview. Again, with another level, we have it present, which is allowed us to adjust where the material distributed. For example, we can have it altitude reduced down, and you can see preview. For example, we can control on what altitude, how blur on the edges will be. Notice range of altitude, we have it per object, absolute, relatively to sea or by material, so we have it all these different ways. We have it slope constraint, so if you want just on flat surfaces, we can go like right there, and this will be just on the flat surfaces, 16 degrees, maybe even 6 degrees all the way. So that will be a little bit more on the flat areas, so we can convert this way. Again, same business on the area. And we also have it orientation. Orientation, think about this. If you have a mountain with a snow on one side, because the south side is melting faster, so you can kind of almost do this way. You can orientate to specific. This is a basic presence. Okay, so this is our basic material we look so far. Let's go ahead, a very fast look on dual side. And dual side, if we look, you can notice we have it options, material 1 and material 2. So we can select same way between different materials, and notice these materials can be as well mapped picture, natural, so they take these standard materials and add 2 of them, and this going with a side. So in this case, we can say where's one material begin and when is another one. So let's go ahead, delete the arrow this. Let's go to delete this sphere. I'm going to create new sphere. Okay, let's go bring up, take our main camera. Ooh, where's my sphere? Right here. Okay. Okay, our sphere. Let's go preload it. Basic material. We'll open. We'll switch this to two-sided. Okay, and we'll get one material. Okay, we'll go to constant color for now. Let's go set red. Okay, and we'll go to another material. We'll set same to constant color, and we'll just go to blue. So right here, if you look, it's a blue in color. Okay, let's go set this to 1. Okay. And now we have our materials, how we want to the mix. Okay, we probably want to create also one just below, just hold here. Okay, our presence is help on this material overall. You notice as we have it second, we have it presence available. So just want to show you this one. But overall, we have our material back and front. Right now, because it's mixed, we don't have a two sides. Kind of it's a sphere. It's go around. And we have it also alpha or transparency, how we want to apply it. So let's go ahead, click on this and click on plane. There you go. Okay, we'll take our plane. Let's go convert this way. Right there. We'll go to our sphere, copy, plane, paste. So in this case, you can see they will mixed again. Like right there, we'll have it blue, a little bit red on this side, and it should be a little bit blue on this side. So overall, think about this. We have it materials that we can apply differently to the each side object. Because it's work better if you have it, for example, leaves, and you want to have a different color on them. Because of that effect, I'll give you some very creative things you can do it. For example, you can have it mushroom, and in mushroom, right here was a constant, you can have it, for example, luminosity. Okay, and now you'll have it your plane where the one side is kind of will be glowing, can produce lights. You can see right here. Let's go come closer. So it's kind of produce lights and another doesn't. So you can have it cup of the darker, but inside it's glowing. So green glowing mushrooms or other things. So it's kind of very fun things to do with a plane. Okay, let's go back to our sphere. And in the currently in sphere, because it's inside the sphere, we don't see the red, but we see kind of apply on top. So let's go ahead, switch this to the mix material. And in mix material, that is actually a bit different. So it's not necessarily blend right here, simple blend. You also can separate by the cover. So what's meaning cover? Let's go edit distribution, and we'll just for distribution just select something, and you can see how it's creating. So it's not necessarily blend them in. It's take property of one material and apply the property on another material. So let's go ahead. For example, we take flat gray, okay, and we'll go to the normals. Let's go ahead, procedural. Let's open this procedural as a normal. Okay, just select. I think it's have some little bit problem to work with mine procedural things. So we'll go through there. Okay, right here, yeah, I have a lot of lost connections. Right here with position and repeating in mind. So we'll go to normal. Okay, let's go ahead right here. I think we can do a little bit faster and better if we just have it mapped picture. There you go. And you can see right here we applied normals to on 1. Okay, we can also do this to, let's go select maybe this one. Apply to this one. It's again too much. Let's go reduce this a little bit smaller. But you notice we applied displacement just to one material, and another material still have kind of like almost smooth. So in some cases, think about this. If I want to create a metallic, so for example, we're going with this, and we'll go with a reflection. Let's pop up reflection up, effects, color reflecting. So we have a metal cover in this area. Let's go our highlights. And we go a little bit shiny. So we create a metal almost right there. And this is will be our rust. And you can see how fast I can create kind of with this materials. We can do our rust. Okay, normals. Yeah, we don't need, you know what, let's don't worry about this one right now. But on the displacement, now let maybe even have a different one. Let's go with this. Some crazy normals. And you can see how we can apply them. Right there, object parametric. Notice that all can be applied separately. And you can see we have it metal, and we can apply some to our covering overall, create like almost rust on the metal. Again, it's take a little bit time to kind of reapply, play a little bit more around, but we can create very fast this way. And you know what, I think this one little bit displacement, let's go to opposite, so we're kind of going down inside. There you go. So overall, this is what we can, with mix, we can actually take this and mix total different materials, not just a blend and overlay. Remember that inside mix materials mode, we have it different type. We have it a blend, which is almost like a layering. We have it with a binary bicubical, so it's a little bit better, improve on some edges, covering, land, and right here again, we have it our blending strip or contrast between those levels. Okay, let's go back to none. So we'll have it sharper edges between two materials. Okay, we also have it alpha, influence of the environment. So if we have it for each material, we can also say how much will be influenced, for example, altitude, and you can see bottom or other things. And we also have it presence, which is apply for all of those materials, as we looked before, if you want to apply on based on altitude, or so on. Okay, we cover a lot of stuff already. We have a few more to go. Okay, one of them, it will be grouped material, which is kind of similar, where you can create a different materials, group them together, and work with interactions on them. Okay, we also have it our ecosystem, which is by itself very complex, and it's required their own tutorials, but overall we can overview fast what we have here. We have first tab where we can add all these different elements, rock, plants, and you can add all these different multiple elements. You can create multiple ecosystem layers, and using the affinity or repulsion, you can interact between them. And I probably have a special video just going over ecosystem, how they work. But also you can have it how many of them you want it. You can even mix between rocks and plants together, or just plants and rocks. You can create multiple areas. You can populate those elements by clicking populate. Okay, you can go over your area. You can scale, reduce presence. So for example, let's go make it a little bit smaller here and this a little bit bigger. So let's go click populate again. You can also have additional tabs where you can set density, and one is fun, like 360 population. So if we do it, will create like little teeny tiny planet with trees growing all over places. So you can have fun. On this one, 360 population work very nice if you have overhanging cliff and you want some veins go below, then you can create it and just specify on this. How I say, we'll go more in details probably in another video, because it is very complex system. But overall, here's your density populations. You have the variable density that you can connect to the image or to the function, wherever you like it. Decay near objects, when you put it, its plants won't go around. You have your scaling with the different elements. Lean, how it will affect areas. Shrink, same, we can control by the function or image. We have it overall color changing, including on low densities, so we can manipulate with a color overall, even how it will in way will affect. For example, if you want to make it a little bit yellowish, kind of dying out, or opposite, you can easy effect here. Presence, it's a similar because it's higher level, so we can manipulate as we saw slope. And of course, you can have it animated. You can animate for the looping or how the plant's moving, for example. If you want to make this with the wind, remember what I said before, the Vue plants inside, they can grow, they move with the wind, with the gust of wind, the effect of the seasons on them as well. So they have quite a bit complex system built in. And the best parts, you have millions of them, and they all can be affected and manipulated by this. Okay, so we have all of these elements. Let's go delete them, because another one, the last one, what I want to show you, it's only work if you have one material, and it's called volumetric material. Think about volumetric material. It is a fog or cloud or other things. So in this case, you have a very simple density. You have the fuzziness. We can apply density effect. That's how dense cloud is. Again, we can use it already predefined function, and you can see how it's affecting. We can have it color. We can pop up over all density on object, and so on. This is where you can create a smoke or clouds or other effect. By itself, Vue was introduced. Recent versions have a very powerful cloud system, so you can create from the object cloud or other things. So this is material still exists, and it was in early versions. It's still useful in some cases, but overall, if you want to create something more shape-based volumetric cloud, I would probably recommend just using cloud new system on a clouds. Okay, let me go close this one, and just to create from here loaded like meta clouds or loaded object and convert into the meta clouds. I think that will be probably the best way to do it. So overall, here's a very fast overview of our materials editor inside the Vue. If you get lost or it's confusing, too many properties, don't worry about this. Just open, start play around, see how you feel it. And later I will go in more details on each material. So we'll go and create, like for example, we created this metal with some rust stuff from mixed materials. We've done this very fast and kind of a little bit sloppy-ish. So we'll go in more details and create more accurate to the world that material. As well, we did not even cover here our Pbr materials, okay, which is another big sessions also, and some of substance materials. So those ones we'll probably cover in a next video. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up, like it, subscribe to the channel. It will help my channel grow as well, help me to create more new videos. Again, thank you for all of your support.